Please turn in your Bibles this morning to Exodus chapter 2 and place a marker in Numbers chapter 26. Exodus chapter 2 and Numbers chapter 26. Today I'm going to be reading from the New International Version, and the title of our message today is Steadfast. Today is Mother's Day. It's a day that we should all be able to celebrate. A funny thing happened this week. We were talking about how to honor our mothers, which, by the way, on your way out today, you'll see two vases with some really pretty roses in them. We would like every mother who's here today to leave with a rose as our gift from us to you. We think that roses are beautiful and mothers are too, so we figured we'd put the two of you together. But we were trying to decide how to honor moms. And I said, you know what would be cool? What if we didn't just honor moms, we also honored anyone who has a mom? I'll let that sink in for a minute. Mother's Day is a day we should all celebrate because we all have a mom. The very fact that you're sitting in this room today means that you have a mom. And she may be the greatest mom in the world, or she may be just okay. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say that probably well over 90% of mothers want the best for their children. They do anything and everything they can to make their lives great, and they deserve to be honored. Amen? Can we just hear it for our moms real quick? Give them a round of applause. In America, we go all out to honor our moms. Maybe some of you saw my video that I posted from Walmart yesterday on Facebook. I did some research this week and found out that this year, Americans are projected to spend nearly $21 billion with a B just for Mother's Day. It's the third largest retail holiday behind only Christmas and back to school. We love our moms. $2 billion of that money alone will be spent on flowers, and nearly $700 million will be spent on cards. Cards that try to put into words what mom means. I'll tell you what, there's a lot of cards out there. Anyone been card shopping lately? Man, there's all kinds of Mother's Day cards. But I'll be honest, I had trouble finding one. I went this week and looked for a card for my mother, and I'm sure it exists, but no matter how hard I looked, I couldn't find a card designed for a 50-year-old woman who likes Betty Boop, drives a Mustang, and is a rock star at crochet. They just don't have it. So what I did was I just got a really pretty blank inside card. You know what a blank inside card is? It's not a card you send someone who's feeling blank inside. It's a card that has a nice design on the outside, but on the inside, it's just blank. There's nothing there. I heard a comedian talking about him one time, and he said, you're paying for a crease. But I think the cool thing about a blank inside card is that you can pick a cool design, but then you don't have to worry about what some artist thought you should say to your mother. Instead, you write your own note to your mom and let her know what she means to you. So that's what I did. I'll tell you what I think would be fun. Right now, let's do an audio blank inside card. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to count to 3. And when I say 3, I want you to shout one word and one word only about what your mom means to you. Now, only do this if your mom or your wife are here with you today. If they're not here, they're not going to hear you. I mean, if they're in Bentonville, then too bad. They missed out. But I'm going to say 3. And then I want you to shout that one word. And you better be loud, because with everybody else shouting to their mom, your mom may not hear you. Are you ready? Here we go. You got your word? Blank inside card. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. All right. Good job. I heard loving. I think I heard busy. For some reason, I think I heard Brian. I don't know who said that, but thank you, I guess. Well, the word that comes to my mind when I think of a good mother is steadfast. Who knows what the word steadfast means? I looked it up in the dictionary, and it said, resolutely or dutifully firm and unwavering. A few synonyms for the word are loyal, faithful, committed, devoted, dedicated, dependable, reliable, steady, and true. Man, I'll tell you what, if you are a young man and you're in the market for a woman to be the mother of your children, isn't that the kind of mother you'd like to find? Wouldn't you like to find a mom who's going to be loyal, faithful, committed, devoted, dedicated, dependable, reliable, steady, and true? Wouldn't you like to find a mom who's going to be steadfast? Well, today we're going to look to the Word of God, and we're going to read about a woman like this. And we're going to see 4 things that a steadfast mom does. But if you're not a mom, I don't want you to check out today, because in reality, we should all strive and want to be steadfast. The things that we're going to read about that this steadfast mom does for her child, these are things that we should want to do for the people around us. Our children, our friends, our family members, our employees, our co-workers, and more could all benefit from us being steadfast. So even though I'm not going to say that every time I get to a point, I want you to, in your mind, if you're not a mom, I want you to replace that word. When I say children or babies, you just replace it with whatever works for you, employees or friends or family. So we're going to dive into our story that's found in Exodus chapter 2, but before we do, I want to set the stage for you. Many, many years before this story took place, generations before, a man named Jacob, who's also known as Israel, and his sons came to Egypt. And they came to Egypt during a great famine. And when they got to Egypt, one of his sons was already there. His name was Joseph, and Joseph was in charge of basically all of Egypt. He was Pharaoh's number 2 man. And so when they got there, they found favor, and they were given good land, and they became wealthy, and they became blessed. Well, when we get to our story, Jacob and all of his sons, as well as the Pharaoh who liked them, were all dead, because it's generations later. And the new Pharaoh gets a little bit worried about the Israelites because there's so many of them. And he says, well, someday they're going to be so many that they're going to overtake us. You see, he doesn't realize that the only reason that Egypt still exists is because of what Jacob's son Joseph did. But he gets scared, so he says, we're going to make them slaves. And then eventually he makes a rule that every male baby who is born to the Israelites must immediately be thrown into the Nile River. That's pretty harsh, isn't it? His goal was annihilation of this nation through attrition. Because if you take out all the boys, well, eventually there can't be any new Israelites, and all there would be is Egyptians. So in the last verse of Exodus chapter 1, Pharaoh gives this order that all male babies must be thrown into the Nile, and then we pick up the story in Exodus chapter 2, verse number 1, where it says, now a man of the tribe of Levi married a Levite woman, and she became pregnant and gave birth to a son. When she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him for 3 months. But when she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him and coated it with tar and pitch. Then she placed the child in it and put it among the reeds along the bank of the Nile. His sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. Then Pharaoh's daughter went down to the Nile to bathe, and her attendants were walking along the riverbank. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her female slave to get it. She opened it and saw the baby. He was crying, and she felt sorry for him. This is one of the Hebrew babies, she said. Then his sister asked Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you? Yes, go, she answered. So the girl went and got the baby's mother. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, take this baby and nurse him for me, and I will pay you. So the woman took the baby and nursed him. When the child grew older, she took him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses, saying, I drew him out of the water. The mother we're talking about in this story is a woman named Jochebed. Everybody say Jochebed. She's the mother of Moses, and many of us have heard this story before, but it's pretty incredible. And today what I want us to do is look at this passage and look at 4 things that Jochebed does and that all steadfast mothers do. The first thing that steadfast moms do is they protect their babies. Verse 2 says, when she had a baby boy, she hid him for 3 months. She knew that if any of the Egyptians had discovered the child, that they would kill it. And they'd probably kill her for breaking the law, for disobeying the command that Pharaoh gave. But she didn't care because he was her child. She didn't care what would happen to her. She was going to protect him. Can you imagine how difficult it would have been to hide a newborn baby for 3 months? Now, I know it's been a long, long time since my kids have been newborn babies. But if I remember correctly, newborn babies do one thing in particular that would make them very bad at a game of hide and seek. And that is they cry a lot. Now, we have 2 of the most agreeable, sweetest, nicest babies in the world right back there in our nursery right now. But I am fairly confident if we were to ask Megan and Alicia if they felt like they could have hidden their babies for 3 months after they were born, they would tell us that that would have been a stressful task at the least. But see, that's the thing about a steadfast mom. She doesn't care if a task is stressful. She doesn't care if it's difficult. She doesn't even care if it's dangerous. A steadfast mom will do whatever it takes to protect her babies. I read some stories this week about mothers who did this. One mother, her name was Christina. She's not our Christina. She's a woman named Christina. She was in an apartment on the 2nd floor of an apartment building that caught fire. The fire kept her and her baby from being able to escape through the front door. So she walked out to the balcony, she wrapped her baby in her arms, and leapt backwards off of the balcony, breaking her spine and her hip in the process, but protecting her baby. Another mother named Aline was in her home when a fire broke out. She picked up her daughter and carried her to safety. Well, you think, well, we'd all do that. Yeah, we would, but here's the thing that makes it amazing. At the time, Aline was 87 years old, and her daughter was a 67-year-old woman who had cerebral palsy. She picked her up and carried her out of the fire. There's so many examples of moms doing this sort of thing, jumping in front of moving vehicles, running into fires, fighting off dogs, tigers, and even bears. There was a story I read about a mom who fought off a polar bear to protect her baby. Because that's what a steadfast mom does. And you might be sitting here today saying, well, man, I never did any of that. I've never done anything anywhere close to that. Well, let me tell you, it's not always huge acts of heroism that you need to protect your baby. Sometimes it's just hiding your baby for 3 months. Sometimes it's moving the iron so that it doesn't fall on your child's head. Sometimes it's just holding their hand so they don't walk into the street. It all has the same effect, protecting your baby. The second thing a steadfast mom does is they provide for their babies. I love this story. I love how the sister is watching to see what happens to the brother. No doubt because her mom made her do it. I don't know how old Miriam was at this time, but if she was a teenager, you know she wasn't doing it out of the kindness of her heart. Mom had to have said, now go watch your brother and see what happens. She watches, and when Pharaoh has the baby brought to her and picks it up out of the basket, the sister runs up and says, do you want me to go get an Israelite woman to nurse this baby for you? When I first read this, I thought, now that's going to be a little fishy. If she just shows up with a woman who happens to be capable of nursing a baby. But then I realized there are probably hundreds, if not thousands, of Israelite women who have just given birth and thrown their baby into the river. So their bodies are ready to provide for a child. But she runs and gets the mom. And the mom, for what most scholars believe was the next 2 to 3 years, was able to spend time with her child, providing for its needs. Isn't that awesome? But can you imagine how bittersweet that would have been? I mean, surely she was grateful that her child was alive, that he wasn't dead. And surely she was grateful for every opportunity, every minute that she got to spend with him. But I can only imagine that every minute she spent with him, every feeding, every moment together was a reminder that she was going to have to give him up. I remember when we took Courtney down to college and dropped her off. It's the hardest thing I have ever done in my life, driving home from Conway. You're like, well, it's only 2.5 hours away. I don't care. Because for 18 years, every single day of her life, I was able to give her a kiss goodnight. And then all of a sudden, I knew that I couldn't do that anymore. And we get so busy with our lives that I don't think we ever look forward to that moment and think about it. But we know that Jochebed had to have looked forward to that every single day. It probably would have been easier for her to simply give him up and never see him again, instead of breaking her heart over and over and over. But she didn't care what was easier, because a steadfast mom provides for her children. A steadfast mom does whatever it takes. I know I've mentioned this before, but I will never stop being grateful for the sacrifices that my mom made to provide for her children. You see, my parents divorced when I was 11 years old, and I love my dad and I love my mom, and we're a great team, the three of us. But from the moment they divorced, my mom started working 2 and sometimes 3 jobs. I hardly ever saw her because she was always at work to provide for her children. And there were times that we didn't always have what we wanted, but we almost always had what we needed. And I'm thankful for that. And obviously that's a big deal to me personally, but the truth is that every mom who's hearing this message does the same thing for your children. Many of you have given up your own dreams, your own goals, so that your children could live out theirs. And it's not just physical needs that our moms provide either. More than anything, our moms provide for our emotional needs. You know, it's a funny thing for centuries. Psychologists thought that this feeling of attachment, this feeling of love that babies and toddlers have for their mother was purely a physiological thing, that we so craved the milk that we so desperately needed that we had affection towards the being that was giving us that milk. But there was a psychologist who didn't think that that was true, who thought there was more to it. So he did an experiment where he would take chimpanzees and he would put them in a cage on the edge of starvation. He would deprive them of food for several days and then put them in a cage with 2 fake moms. One fake mom was a wire mom that had a bag of milk and a feeding tube. The other fake mom was a cloth mom with fur on it that couldn't provide any physical needs for the chimpanzee at all. And time and time and time again, what they saw in these chimpanzees, which are so close to humans in nature, is that the chimpanzee would run to the wire mother for just long enough to fill its belly, and then it would run to the loving mother and cuddle up with that mom. Sometimes these chimps would even take themselves again to nearly starving before they were willing to leave the comfort and the protection of their loving mom. And then when these chimpanzees got older and they no longer needed milk, they no longer really needed anything, they would put out in the play area, they would put the wire mom and the other mom. And time again, these chimpanzees would seek out the loving mom that they no longer needed. So when the enemy tries to tell you that you're just an ATM for your teenage or college student, or tries to tell you that you're just a free Grubhub, a food delivery service, don't believe that lie. Because what you provide for your kids is so much more than just physical needs. Steadfast mothers protect their babies, they provide for their babies, and then they let them go. Hold on now, Pastor. Man, I was with you till you said that. I was enjoying you talking about how much I love my kids and what I'll do for them. I was even nudging my husband with my elbow. Well, bear with me. Because verse 10 says that when the child grew older, she took him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. When the time came, she let him go. And luckily, you don't have to do this at the age of 3 like Jochebed did. But eventually, if you're a steadfast mom, you do have to let them go. Because if you don't, you handicap them. You know, we can learn a lot about life by watching animals. And this in particular is so beautifully displayed when we watch birds. When a bird lays an egg, that egg becomes that mama's baby. And she protects it. She does everything she can to protect it. She will chase other animals away. She'll chase other birds away. And then she provides for it. She sits on the egg and gives it the warmth that it needs so that that baby can grow and hatch. And then once it hatches, she spends all of her time providing for that egg. That baby, excuse me. She will spend all of her time leaving the nest, going and getting food, chewing it up, and then spitting it into her child's mouth. Moms, I encourage you not to do this at lunch today. But that's their way of nursing their young. They go get food and they chew it up and then they spit it into their mouths. But eventually the baby gets old enough to fly. And the mother knows it. So you know what she does? She stops bringing food. She just stops bringing it. And that baby bird will chirp and cry and flail around the nest, doing anything it can to get its mom's attention, saying, "Bring me food. Come on, Mom, bring me food. Wash my clothes. Wake me up in the morning. You know I need these things." But the mom is a steadfast mom, and she knows that if she keeps feeding that bird, that it will never learn to feed itself. And she knows that if she does that, if anything ever happens to her, that her baby will be in danger. So she ignores the cries, and eventually her child will walk to the edge of the nest and look over. And usually what happens is that bird will jump out of the nest and it'll fly and it'll go find some food. But sometimes it needs a little push. So when that bird is standing on the edge of the nest looking over, that mom will come up right behind it and just push it out of the nest. Every mom in the room just silently went, "Oh." Sometimes that's what a mom has to do to get the bird to leave, is to give a gentle push. I came across a quote that I thought was pretty cool. It said, "A bird in a nest is secure, but that's not why God gave it wings." You see, children weren't given to us to keep, but to teach them how to soar on their own and then watch them fly. Moses never could have reached his full potential if Jochebed had not taken him to Pharaoh's daughter and let him go. And your kids will never reach their full potential if you don't let them go. Some of you moms are stuck in the babying phase, and you're even getting mad at me right now. But I'm telling you, you need to give your baby a little push to get them out of the nest. I know you want to be needed, but you're not doing your kid any favors. Steadfast moms protect their babies, provide for them, and then they let them go, all the while trusting God. You see, that's the fourth thing that a steadfast mom does. And without it, the other three things are impossible. See, we've got to realize that all of the awesome things that we want for our children, they pale in comparison to what God wants for our children. God has plans that we can't even fathom. So what our job is to raise our children up in the ways of the Lord. And then the Bible tells us that when they get older, they won't depart from it. See, I know that for Jochebed to hide her baby for 3 months, knowing that if she got caught, both she and the baby would be killed. I know that to do that, she had to trust God. And for her to put her baby into a basket in the river, she had to have trusted God to keep him safe. And then when the time came to deliver him to Pharaoh's daughter, I'll tell you what I have to believe. It doesn't say this, so I'll walk over here and won't stand behind the pulpit. I have to believe that she said a little prayer. And she said, "God, he's yours now. You got to take care of him. I'm turning him over to Pharaoh's daughter." And she trusted God. And it paid off. You see, what happened was Moses grew up in Pharaoh's household. Eventually a time came that he was out watching the Israelites work. And he saw one of them being abused by an Egyptian slave master. Probably shouldn't have done it, but Moses killed the slave master. And then he got so scared that everybody knew about it that he ran away. He fled Egypt. Then through several turns of events, he found himself standing in a cave in front of a burning bush and listening to God say, "Go back to Egypt and tell Pharaoh to let my people go." And then in Numbers chapter 26, verses 59 through 63, we read what happened because of what the steadfast mom did. Numbers 26, 59 through 63 says, "The name of Amram's wife was Jochebed, a descendant of Levi, who was born to the Levites in Egypt. To Amram she bore Aaron, Moses, and their sister Miriam. Aaron was the father of Nadab and Abihu, Eleazar and Ithamar. But Nadab and Abihu died when they made an offering before the Lord with unauthorized fire." Verse 62 says, All the male Levites a month old or more numbered 23,000. They were counted along with the other Israelites. They were not counted along with the other Israelites because they received no inheritance among them. These are the ones counted by Moses and Eleazar the priest when they counted the Israelites on the plains of Moab by the Jordan across from Jericho. 23,000 of Moses' family members were alive and ready to go into the promised land because Jochebed was a steadfast mom. But it wasn't just 23,000 of their family members, because there were over 600,000 Israelites who were getting ready to go into the promised land because Moses reached his full potential because he had a steadfast mom. That's pretty cool, isn't it? See, church, we need to honor our moms. Maybe you're here today and you are a mother and you're like, you know what? Some of what you said today made me feel bad because I don't really feel like I am steadfast. Well, if that's you, then the good news is it's never too late. As long as you still got that kid, you can change your ways. A steadfast mom protects her babies. She provides for them. And then she lets them go, all the while trusting the Lord.